Hello, and welcome to my non-spoiler review of The Incredibles 2, where, about 2/3 of the way through this movie, I found myself overcome with a sense of dread because I realized that the movie before a year, 3 of them. Why can't they give us one Incredibles chapter a year? Okay, maybe every other year, right? But just not every 14, God damn it, Brad Bird, although he certainly made up for it. As I tweeted just after my press screenings I've ever seen in any medium. I love this movie so much. Now, it's weird that I love it so much because there aren't a lot of surprises in the movie. We actually guessed most of it. Hooray for us! And maybe not so hooray for the ad campaign, which kind of gave the surprises away. Important is the journey, right? Although I don't think this movie has a complete destination, which we'll discuss. I think it's more of a middle chapter film. Yay! Which means more, hopefully. But anyway, so it's how the story is told. Getting to spend more time with characters we've sorely missed. It turns out, who doesn't love that, right? One in particular. And then also we lay our eyes on some breathtaking animation. And that's what I want to start with because the quality of the animation was the biggest surprise. Now some of you might be like, Grace, it's Pixar. Of course it's well done. Well, Pixar, even with today's visual effects, like when you think of the Disney Renaissance, I don't know if that, that's why they're doing so many live action versions of that. Like you couldn't do a beast, you couldn't do a genie, you couldn't do a mermaid, you couldn't do live action as well, which of course The Incredibles is known for. But the answer to that question is Elastigirl and Jack Jack, who have the bulk of the action here. That's right, a mom and her baby, which is pretty cool in and of itself. But not together, they don't have any. Well, all those things, both those things can really only be done with animation, or else the movie would have like an insane budget. And I also think that firing a real life baby like a gun might come off as a tad irresponsible. But here, it's a delight. In many ways, laughs. He's a main character in the movie. He has more screen time than Dash. It's hard to balance 3 kids. One always kind of falls through the cracks sometimes, I think. And here, unfortunately, it's Dash. Although he really got to shine in the first film. And it's so great to see Jack by Catherine Keener. The realism of this character's movements, the nuance, the subtleties, the things that she did that real people do all the time. A lot of times Catherine Keener does them, right? But you don't see animated characters acting this way, even sitting this way. I'm still trying to figure out exactly why that is. I think part of it is the real world aspects to the character. Slouching, sitting like in, all the flaws that real people have that are rarely present in animated characters who have excellent posture for the most part, or herself doing the voice work. And all the voice work here is jaw-droppingly good. Everyone's acting their hearts out. And I have to, on that note, it's hard to pick a favorite, but if I had to, it would be Holly Hunter, Bob Odenkirk. It's such a roller coaster of emotion. He really is the MVP of the film, acting-wise. But it's not just the voice work from the actors that's excellent, it's the selection of the actors themselves. Really quirky casting. I love that. So the result is the quality of the voice work, and then they haven't been able to play up The Incredibles 2 so much because Disney has so many other movies to promote, but I hope that, once maybe it is released and everybody gets a gander at this thing, people do talk about the leaps and bounds fight. I don't want to give anything away. Don't worry, non-spoiler review. But there is one fight between Elastigirl and the Screenslaver that is so visually inventive that it actually almost took me out of the movie because I just couldn't believe how good it was and the visual choices that were made. I was like, what? Also, speaking of Disney style, I thought that it was really a nice touch. The opening of a new monorail, one of Helen's first solo missions, was very reminiscent of the famous Disneyland ceremony. That was not only impressive, but very sweet. And then, of course, as I said, you might be like, what? You said no spoilers. But she's not there. You've heard her one line already. I don't want you to be disappointed. I was a tad disappointed. Incredibles 3, let's get Mrs. Frozone out here already. Although I don't like the design that they floated out for her, so maybe have it. But they're still not all the way there yet, as the diversity is mostly achieved with extras. You're like, that's nice, but it's all secondary characters with few lines. Although the exchange between Frozone and someone at DevTech was pretty awesome. For instance, voice feminism. And I feel bad having to say anything at all not perfect about the movie, but it's a little glitch. Because I think, like, for instance, Evelyn, again, not giving too much away, Evelyn is a huge feminist and not in a good way. So while it's a double-edged sword. I was going to say damned if you do, damned if you don't, but if they had just made Voight a character of color, And I think a guy, quite frankly, they would have solved all their problems. And also I would have toned down Evelyn's feminism. I think it was just a bit too much. But none of this derails his face. And also this in particular dialed down the feminism. I thought it was great that Mr. Incredible does have a hard time with his wife being the breadwinner. It's a perfectly natural and relatable reaction, and they handled it very well here. And then it was great to see him realize that, and it was beautiful. And then as for Violet's boy trouble, the way Brad Bird was able to take that little zinger at the end when she gets asked on it, and very, very relatable. That was excellent stuff. Now, speaking of family, the villain's motivations also draw from that sector and introduce a surprisingly dark yet very welcome undercurrent to the whole movie. I actually think they could have gone a bit darker, but of course she's fabulous. But I said I didn't want to give too much away because we've already guessed most of the movie. But she has two scenes, and they're just as good as you would expect them to be. I still get a kick out of the fact that Brad Bird does her voice so good, and then I would just chain him to the desk and be like, just keep making Incredibles movies forever. What will feed you? I mean, how bad is it to be trapped inside the Disney Animation Building? Not too bad at all. Now, I will, again, as I've been saying throughout this review, and hope is no longer can be heard by Brad Bird. So I hope he is indeed here to stay. And start getting more out of this brand, Disney, because that clearly motivates you. They're building an Incredicoaster at Disney's California Adventure. More of that, more rides, more merch. Star Wars and Disney princesses. Oh, I love this movie so much. I plan to see it several times in theaters and purchase it to help contribute to the bottom line that, as we know, again, motivates Disney. So that's my review of The Incredibles 2. I am totally fanning out over this movie hardcore, so don't put any spoilers down there, because again, there's so little left to spoil. Save those comments for the spoiler review. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.